All right, in this video, I want to talk about positioning for startups and why it's so important. It's one of the biggest things I see founders neglect and at their detriment because positioning is so upstream from all the other things that you do. So when you're launching a new marketing campaign or a new sales campaign, everyone is focused on what's the copy, what are we saying? Then there's also the landing pages, your social media content. But if you think about it, all of that flows through from how you position your product in the market as a comparison to direct and indirect alternatives and competitors. So it's something I see often that people neglect, and that's why I want to talk about this. So I'm basing everything in this video on April Dunford's excellent book, Obviously Awesome, and I'm going to run through what is positioning, so how do we define it, what it is and isn't, how do we do it, or why is it important, and then also how do we do it. So without further ado, so what is positioning? Okay, so positioning is not messaging. It's not a tagline. It's not a brand story, vision, or mission. It's not everything the marketers do. So it can't just be marketing's project. It has to be driven by the C-suite and include all of your different departments. So engineering, product, marketing, sales, everyone should be represented by someone on the committee, on the positioning committee. We'll talk more about that after. But essentially, all the different functions of the company should be involved in determining the company's position, the product's position, okay? What is it? So it's when you're setting the context, the frame of reference for your prospects for what market you're operating in. So it's the difference between saying we are a CRM solution to we are a customer experience solution for auto dealerships, right? There's a big difference between those two things. And you can imagine that the second one would have a lot more impact on the product roadmap, on what kind of marketing you do, what kind of events you attend. So you can see how everything downstream from your positioning will be impacted, even how you set the annual budget for where you're going and things that you're doing, okay? What makes effective positioning are that you need to consider competitive alternatives, differentiated features, value for customers, your target customer segmentation, and then your market category. Because if you put yourself in the wrong category, you could end up in a very, very crowded situation. And so ideally, you're putting yourself in a separate vertical or a smaller pond. One of the main strategies, we'll talk about that too, one of the main strategies is being a big fish in a small pond. This is applicable for probably 90% of the companies that I work with, where you want to narrow down your niche until you can dominate or be the leader in that one niche. And the reason is that when you're being compared to other solutions, if they're comparing you to something like Salesforce, you're going to have a bad time, right? You want to be compared to other niche competitors, or ideally even be off on your own little category, right? That's hard to do. Creating a new category is difficult. I know it's kind of a bit of a buzzword these days, but it's very, very difficult and expensive to educate from scratch there. So why is it important? So internal alignment, it's a little bit of a buzzword as well. Like it's, like kind of a consultant, like everyone must be aligned and there must be synergies, but provide clarity. So the idea is we want our internal and our external messaging to just make sense and kind of flow naturally from one to the other. And you're making things make sense for your team internally, but also for your prospects and customers and partners and all that, right? It helps you also identify your best customers. So going through the exercise, you're going to naturally think about and look at data on, who drives the most revenue, who has the highest LTV, who has the shortest sales cycle, things like that, who's the easiest to service, right? So in doing so, it's a forcing function. You're going to find who values your solution the most, and that's probably who you should position your solution towards. The idea also is differentiation. So if you look at Slack's messaging, initially, I did a funnel exercise. I went and looked at their old messaging from many years ago. And initially they were saying, revolutionize the way you communicate, the all-in-one messaging solution for everyone. And then specific was, these are examples. I created these examples. These aren't actually, I could actually get the historical data here. Streamline your team's workflow, integrate all your tools and communication. So they went from we're the communication tool for everyone to we're the tool that integrates with everything with your team, right? And then after that, they got even more narrow. They focus on the enterprise, secure collaboration for the modern enterprise, connect your teams with compliance and scalability. So now they're talking to bigger companies that care about compliance with things like SOC 2 and HIPAA or whatever, whatever specific regulatory compliance things they have to work on. And then finally, back to broad. So the idea is once they got product market fit and they grew, then they could make it a broader focus. And now they say made for people, built for productivity. So it's back to that broader messaging. And this is a common pattern that you see play out in different verticals. And then also team alignment. So making sure that everyone's rowing in the same direction. So engineering, marketing, and sales are all aligned, right? Product development, it's kind of the same thing. You want people to prioritize in the backlog. You want engineers to prioritize the right things in the backlog. And by knowing who you're building for and how you're ultimately positioning yourself, it makes that a lot clearer. Marketing, you can be more focused, right? Your messaging will only speak to your best customers. And then finally, strategy. If you know exactly who you're trying to serve, then it's just a no-brainer to think about who are people who have their attention and who work with them already, so we can develop strategic partnerships. We can prioritize integrations for platforms that already serve this customer base, because it just makes a lot of sense. Otherwise, you're building integrations for all kinds of different platforms, right? So that's the what and the why. The other piece is the workflow. I'm not going to read through all this just because that's a little bit outside the scope of this video, but the essential is that you want to understand the customers who love your product. So this is where you're doing that analysis initially. You're going to build a team internally of people who are going to be involved. Again, this should be cross-functional, so you want to have everyone that has insight on this. So sales, marketing, product, customer support, etc. You want to align your positioning vocabulary and let go of your positioning baggage. So this is a key thing that I really didn't think about when I was looking through. It caught me by surprise, but it's true that in April's book, she talks about how everybody has different definitions of the categories that they're thinking about. They have different definitions of what is positioning. So you want to get everyone on the same page using the right verbiage. Then you want to list your competitive alternatives. So direct and indirect competitors. The question here, and I'll show this after, is what would happen if you went away today? So what would your customers use if you just disappeared today, right? What would they, tomorrow they wake up, what are they logging into? What are they using instead? Sometimes this is just Excel. Other times there's, two or three key competitors and then Excel or pen and paper, right? Depending on where you're at. Then you want to isolate your unique features or attributes. So you're looking at, what do you have that nobody else has in the market right now? This could be one thing, this could be 5 things, right? Then you want to map those attributes to value themes. So this is where you're doing that typical copywriting exercise of translating this feature into a benefit, right? So now we're thinking, what are the value themes that customers care about? So if I have SOC 2 compliance, right? Going back to the Slack example of compliance, SOC 2 compliance is the feature. The theme might be security, peace of mind, right? Risk management. And then from that, you're going to try to identify which customers care most about the value themes you've identified, and then find a market frame of reference that positions you as the best way. And there's 3 plays there. I'll show that right after. And then optionally, you can layer on a trend. This is where, a lot of companies right now are layering on AI as a trend. A few years back, it was Web3, and then, e-commerce and DTC software, right? So there's all kinds of different trends that are popular. This is where you want to do it. But sometimes by doing so, you don't want to just be like something that's completely unrelated to your category or your product. Like, it has to make sense, right? It has to actually add value. And then finally, and this is a key piece that a lot of people don't do, is capture it in a single document. You want to get everything centralized in one place so that every person in the organization knows exactly what our strategic positioning is and how we talk about the company, okay, and the product. So the 3 strategies, really quick. Head-to-head is when you're going into an existing market and you're trying to win the market from scratch. This is really tough to do, because if you position yourself in an existing market, you don't have to teach buyers about the category. The bad news is that it's really hard to do in an established category unless you're really, really well funded or have some massive competitive advantage or strategic partnerships already in place. The second strategy, and this is the one that 90% of companies, it's applicable to, that's April made that point as well, is you want to win a subsegment of an existing category. So you're not creating new demand from scratch. You're not creating a new category. Again, that's very expensive in education and time and budget and all that. But you can go into an existing category and then just be like the specific type of niche competitor within that segment. Then you have validated demand for what you're doing, but you're just offering a different flavor. So people want vanilla, your chocolate in a certain market. And then finally, create a new game. This is where you're creating a whole new category. This is also difficult. It's like the first strategy. It's very difficult to execute. It needs a lot of budget, a lot of time, education, right? Very content heavy strategy. And it has to make sense too. If you're going to create a new category, it has to be a latent category that just makes sense when you look in retrospect. One of the examples here, I'd say, is probably like Intercom and Drift, with turning their chatbot technology into the customer experience platforms. That's an example here that I like a lot. All right. And really quick, an example here with Miro. So this is how you'd actually do the exercise. Once you're past the initial stages and you're getting to step 4. So once everyone, you identify your main customers that you're going to consider for the exercise, you have your team in place, you have your vocabulary, you're all on the same page. These are the steps that you then go through. So you get a Miro board, or do this even on a real whiteboard with Post-it notes. You'd have your competitive alternatives here. So for example, for Miro, traditional whiteboards, digital whiteboarding tools like FigJam, and PM tools like Trello, right? So we're answering the question, if you didn't exist, what would they use? What are the unique attributes of Miro versus these competitors? So here it says free plan. I think Trello does have a free plan, so I'm not sure if that's still valid. But anyway, rich library of templates, best integration library, right? So it's gonna be something that you do uniquely good, uniquely well compared to the others. Value and proof, right? So what value do the attributes enable for customers? Well, we can collaborate interactively regardless of location, improve brainstorming, #1 reviews on G2, 60 million users. Who's the target market? Teams that are remote, educators, PMs, consultants, etc. And then the market category. And then here you're kind of brainstorming some categories that make sense. And then you can pick the one afterwards that you actually put them into. You're like, visual collaboration, educational settings, remote workplaces, etc. And then relevant trends, right? The rise of remote work with COVID, increasing need for digital transformation in companies, and the adoption of agile methodologies. This is where you can, again, step 6 here is optional, the whole trend thing. But yeah, and then after this, you would then select what you're actually going to go with and put that in a separate document. And then that's like a 1 or 2 pager kind of summary of like positioning and messaging characteristics for your product. And then that's the end deliverable that you have for that exercise. And now everyone's on the same page. Again, if you want more information, all this content is from April's website. It's excellent. Read the book and watch her videos. Check her out. She does great work. So yeah, this is just my understanding of it.